Welcome to the Scientist with Heart Podcast, my open diary of academic life. This is a space where I share my personal thoughts and reflections on research, teaching, and university life. These are my own opinions, and the aim is to spark discussion, exchange perspectives, and gather insights from others navigating the academic roller coaster at the bench and in the lecture hall. Today, I want to talk about a phrase you hear all the time in science. We are standing on the shoulders of giants. It sounds nice, doesn't it? It paints this picture of a few great minds towering like statues, lifting us higher toward truth and discovery. But I think in academia, this phrase is actually not very accurate. Because science is not built on individual giants. Science is built on an army. On a pile of bodies, actually. On the countless lives and efforts of researchers who came before, the PhD students, the postdocs, the technicians, the young scientists between ages 20 and 40, who pour the best years of their cognitive lives into the lab. That is the real foundation we're standing on. Think about it. When you imagine a big discovery, say a Nobel Prize level breakthrough, do you picture a lone genius, the giant of the field? That's how the media sometimes likes to show it. One name, one face, one story. But behind every so-called giant, there are decades of collective work. Armies of pipette-wielding researchers, thousands of experiments done at midnight, hundreds of failed approaches, negative data points and abandoned techniques. The invisible work that rarely makes it into papers, let alone textbooks. The irony is, most discoveries are not a single moment of brilliance. They are the slow accumulation of effort. They are mosaics of tiny pieces contributed by many, many people. Now, am I saying we should forget about the big names and stop respecting the great innovators and the prize winners? Not at all. No, we do need those people. We do need idols. We need people to look up to remind us that persistence, curiosity, and courage can pay off. Giants matter. They are often the ones who connect the dots, who see the big picture, who keep pushing one question for decades instead of giving up. Sometimes they happen to be looking at the right thing at the right time, and serendipity plays its part. But even the greatest thinkers did not work in isolation. Actually, they almost never do. A Nobel Prize winner may have had the vision, but without the groundwork done by 100 students, postdocs, collaborators, and technicians, that vision would never have become real. Here is what gets lost when we focus so much on the giants. The countless failed experiments that still taught us something, sometimes more than the successful experiments. And with failed, I mean negative data. The people who gave their sharpest, most energetic years to science before moving on to completely different careers. That's the hardest part. And that's you. That's most of you listening to this podcast. Because a lot of the people out there, past, present, and future academics, you will only stay in academia, especially in science, for a certain period of time. And that's in your 20s and 30s, and that's your sharpest, most energetic years. These contributions rarely get recognition. But without them, scientific progress simply would not exist. So shout out to all of you and thank you for your contributions. Again, no matter where life has put you now. So when people say we're standing on the shoulder of giants, I picture something else. I picture this pile of bodies. Not in a grim way, but in the sense that every scientist, every early career researcher puts part of themselves into this heap of human effort. Each of us adds a piece. Maybe it's just a data set, a protocol, a negative result that prevents others from going down the wrong path. Each piece is part of the larger mosaic of science. And what I want to say directly to everyone who has left academia is this: your contribution mattered, no matter what it was. Even if your name is not attached to a famous discovery, even if you never became the giant, your time in science, your experiments, your persistence, they are part of the invisible mountain on which all discoveries stand, the underwater part of the iceberg, if you will. So yes, celebrate the giants, learn from them, look up to them, but never forget the real engine of science, the collective, the thousands who came before, who made mistakes, who worked late, who were tired and failed, who trained the next generation. We're in a well-oiled system, and we're not only doing science, but we're also training the next generation. Progress in science is not a single statue rising above the masses. It is a living system of human effort, generation after generation. And if you've been part of that, again, in whatever role it was, whether you stayed or eventually left, or if you will leave soon, then you too are part of the foundation of scientific progress. I think this is important to say from colleague to colleague. And don't get me wrong, I know that a lot of prize winners, they dislike the attention around their persona, and they emphasize also in interviews that if they couldn't have done it without their lab, their colleagues, the smart people around them. And I appreciate that very much. Nevertheless, we can say it once more. It doesn't harm. Let's acknowledge all of us. Now, let me add something a little bit controversial. Earlier, I said that professors, PIs, group leaders, future Nobel Prize winners, I just take the Nobel Prize as an example because it's so widely known and prestigious. So those people often have this extraordinary ability to connect the dots. That's what I said. And that is true. But we also should not forget something else. Often those dots are triggered by conversations with others. So I'm not saying it is theft. It is not stealing ideas. It's the natural culmination of brains working in series. Maybe the spark for the idea or for connecting the dots came from a hallway chat with a PhD student. Maybe it came from an unexpected question during a conference, or a conference speaker brought up some aspect that just generated a totally new angle on a certain topic. Maybe it was input from a completely different field, picked up by total coincidence. Big thoughts rarely happen in isolation. That's what I'm saying. They are fragments of conversations pieced together over time until one person happened to distill them. And that's why even the greatest discoveries should be taken with a grain of salt, because behind that one thing, that one big idea, there is again a network of contributions. Talking about contributions in science is anyhow a very, very difficult topic. Let me know if you want me to talk about that and the example of authorship on papers, maybe. So, if you are a young academic listening to this, don't be discouraged. Yes, look up to the Nobel Prize winners and the idols. They achieved something extraordinary. But remember, they succeeded partly because they stayed, they persisted, dedicating decades of their lives to science. That means you don't need to be a lone genius. And for a matter of fact, most of us are not geniuses. What matters is to cultivate the mindset of an open sponge, to listen to the peers, connecting fragments, staying alert to ideas that came from anywhere, even outside your own field. If you do that with dedication and persistence, there is a chance you might be the next one to make a breakthrough. I think that's actually very uplifting, motivational even. Also, it gives me great respect for the legacy I inherit as a scientist in academia. But now it's your turn. What do you think about this? Do you see it differently? Let me know. I'd love to hear your perspective.